This is every single fight to make next after UFC Fight Night Atlanta, Usman versus Buckley. I've got all of the key fighters from that card on the screen right now. Some winners, some losers, and you may notice there is an empty box next to all of them, and that's where their next opponent's going to go, who I've hidden around the perimeter of the screen. I'll slowly reveal those opponents one by one as the video goes on and place them where they belong on the screen. Let's start straight away with the main event. Kamaru Usman versus Joaquin Buckley. Kamaru Usman wins. A dominant decision. A great performance from Kamaru Usman. I mean, it wasn't action-packed, but I guess it's on Buckley to make things action-packed by actually scrambling and stuffing some of those initial takedowns. Because if you're Usman, you're thinking, well, this is a dream. You know, Usman probably went into that fight thinking this is going to be a war. I'm ready for anything. And he goes out there and thinks, oh, hang on a minute. I'll just do this for 4 rounds. And if I can't do it later on, then I've already got enough rounds to win. So Kamaru Usman did his thing. Took down Joaquin Buckley, hurt him in the first round with some shots. But other than that, with Kamaru Usman, this wasn't the type of fight where he's going to take any kind of damage where he needs to be out for a long time. I can't imagine him breaking his foot in this fight. He barely kicked at all. Maybe that's something that he had going into it. But my thing with Usman is he didn't take any damage here. He's going to be fresh. The damage that Usman, in my opinion, is taken at this point in his career is actually getting to the fights and through the training camps. So that's probably why Usman, I want him to be active here. I know we're not going to get a lot of activity out of him because in his post-fight interview that he had backstage with ESPN, he said something like, I'm ready for my title shot in 2026. It's fucking June! It's June of 2025! I am done seeing fighters once a year. I am actually done with that. I can't, we're going to see what happens in Makhachev JDM, and I'll be ready for my title shot in 2026. I'm not trying to wait until April, May, June of 2026 to see Usman back in there. We've just seen you out for ages. You've had one fight. What's now? All right, see you guys in a year. I hate that. I absolutely hate that from these guys. And I need to see Usman versus Belal Muhammad. This is a no-brainer. Belal Muhammad called him out on Twitter. I know he said, you pick the time and the date and I'll be there ready for the fight. This is the fight to happen in my opinion. Kamaru Usman, Belal Muhammad. It's a sick matchup. And I think there's a lot of beef on the line. There's a podcast that was never released that they could release some of in the build-up on social media. I'm sure Usman has the footage for it, so he might, release certain parts of it that make him look good, and then we're going to have that back and forth from Belal Muhammad. There's actually something that can help promote this fight. The UFC have a real problem with not getting matchups made where there's legitimate promo and drama on the line. And this is, regardless of drama and promo, a sick matchup in the welterweight division. This is an amazing matchup in the welterweight division. Number 2 or number 3 right now, I'm not sure where they'll put him. They should probably put him above Edwards, but he's lost twice to him. But he's also beat Edwards once. But either way, Usman's going to be in the top 5. Belal Muhammad is the current number 1 ranked guy in the world in that division because he was the champion before losing to JDM. Regardless of anything else that's a part of this matchup, this is a sick fight. Usman's going to be ranked number 4 at best here. And there's a bunch of matchups that are going to happen in the welterweight division in the meantime. In Sean Brady versus Ian Gary, in Shavkat Rakhmonov versus someone else. Like, there's going to be matchups that are being made. And I don't want to wait a year and have Usman's reserved spot for a title shot in 2026, adding to this logjam even more. We should be out of this welterweight logjam by the time 2026 begins. We shouldn't be adding another guy into it that just has to sit there and wait a year until they add to the logjam even more. And then we're maybe in a position where we're still not seeing the Bradys, the Garys, and the Rakhmonovs fighting for the world championship until the end of 2026 at best. That's a horrible position. There's so much beef here. They've been going back and forth at each other. They don't like each other. They've been heated with each other in person before. And that was before there was even a fight on the horizon. So why not run Usman versus Belal Muhammad? Pay-per-view in December. Get it done and become undeniable for your title shot. Because in this way, no one's going to be complaining about, oh, well, what about the other contenders? And I'd be saying, well, what do you mean, what about the other contenders? Usman just came back, beat Buckley, and now he's just beat Belal Muhammad. If Belal Muhammad wins, I don't think they're going to give him a title shot in the welterweight division. But he would then be next in line for another contender in that division. But I think Usman versus Belal Muhammad is the fight to happen. I think it'll be a big build-up, and I think it should be on pay-per-view, main card, in December, We don't get these big fights anymore. Stop letting us have them once a year. Please, can we get top-ranked contenders in the UFC octagon more than one day out of 365 fucking days a year? Going with Usman versus Belal Muhammad here. Amazing matchup. We've also got Joaquin Buckley, who lost and took some damage. Joaquin Buckley did take some damage here. It wasn't the best of performances from Joaquin Buckley, and he knows that. It was a disappointing one. It's one where he's got to go back to the drawing board and really think about things when it comes to the future of his career. I think that Joaquin Buckley should be looking to take a few months off. I think we could see Joaquin Buckley back in there before the end of the year. And I don't know what position this fight is going to be in by the end of the year. In a smart world, he would wait until the end of the year to get this Joaquin Buckley matchup, because it's a big one and it would sell and it would be a good fight night main event in the Apex. It would be a good co-main event or a good fight night main event in a crowded arena, depending on how good the card is underneath it. This would be a great addition to any pay-per-view main card if it's a little bit of a weaker pay-per-view, which seems to be every pay-per-view these days. Joaquin Buckley versus Kevin Holland 2, the rematch. Holland beat him at 185 in Buckley's debut. It's a full circle moment. It's time, and this is a good thing for Buckley, because if he overcomes the Holland loss and beats him after this loss to Kamaru Usman, it's like absolute proof that he is along the journey of his MMA career. Like, he is actually getting better as he goes along when it comes to his career. So I think this is a good fight to revisit. There are other matchups that you could make right now in that division. I've seen a lot of people putting forward ideas like, sign me up for Joaquin Buckley versus Carlos Prates. Sign me up for Joaquin Buckley versus Jeff Neal. I think Carlos Prates and Jeff Neal should be being booked by September at the latest. In all honesty, they are probably going to be back in there within the next few months. Now, Holland might do the same. This is the thing about Kevin Holland, and is why I said it depends what position this guy's in by the time that this fight could materialize. Holland could take a fight in the meantime and lose, or we could do Joaquin Buckley versus Kevin Holland, get right back in there. October, late October maybe on a fight night card, late October on a pay-per-view card. Joaquin Buckley versus Kevin Holland is a great matchup, a great rematch. They're going to sell it in the build-up. There's going to be a press conference if they are on a pay-per-view. These are interesting matchups with history, and they're matchups that you'll have a little bit of a buzz for. It took me the whole card to get to Usman versus Buckley before I had a buzz for a matchup. I was like really excited for Malcolm Wellmaker's fight, which we'll get to in a second in terms of what's next for him. I've been cooking with some of these other matchups. But I was looking at the Malcolm Wellmaker fight, and then it sort of got to the Garbrandt fight, and then that kind of fizzled out a little bit, and we'll talk about the matchups for the winner and loser of that Garbrandt fight in him and Barcelos in a second. But we don't have these big fights anymore where there's actually something on the line. There's some meaning. There's some trash talk. I like Joaquin Buckley versus Kevin Holland. I know people are also saying, oh, what about Joaquin Buckley versus Ian Gary? What about scheduling don't you get? Buckley is going to have to recover from that first round damage where he got cut open a bunch. Ian Gary should be back in there in the next few pay-per-views. I don't know why every time these matchups happen, people are like, oh, give me that person versus that person. I'm like, dude, that person fought at the start of the year. That person fought a few months ago. He's not on the schedule of the guy who just fought today. And he shouldn't be expected to wait to be on that schedule either. So I think that Joaquin Buckley versus Kevin Holland in October, November time would be a good matchup. If Holland is smart, he should be a little bit inactive for once to get this one done. And then we would do an Ian Gary versus a Sean Brady. We would do a Shavkat Rakhmonov versus another guy that's on the come up. I can't even think about who that would be right now. There's loads of names at welterweight, though, to choose from. Michael Morales. Just do Michael Morales versus Shavkat Rakhmonov. Let's get some matchups made in this welterweight division, including Usman versus Belal Muhammad as well. Rose Namajunas in the co-main event of this fight night. She won a fight against Miranda Maverick. I would like to see her against Macy Barber. Macy Barber versus Erin Blanchfield was supposed to happen recently, but Macy Barber, of course, pulled out on the day of the event, actually an hour before the walkouts were supposed to begin. So I don't think they should rebook Erin Blanchfield versus Macy Barber. I think this has lost Macy Barber's privileges of getting a top 5 opponent. So I think what they should do is make Macy Barber versus Rose Namajunas, who's down in the rankings compared to Macy Barber. And then they should do Natalia Silva versus Erin Blanchfield instead. A fresh matchup for a title shot while they do a Shevchenko versus Zhang, most likely in the meantime. But I like Rose Namajunas versus Macy Barber. I think that's what they should do as a matchup. Edmund Shabazian won in the feature fight. I don't really have anything too interesting for him, but I think this makes sense. Jacob Malkoun is a middleweight. He's actually got a pretty decent record. He's a pressure wrestler. And I know that Andre Petrosky is one of those as well, but he's not as good as Jacob Malkoun at it. So I think they should do Jacob Malkoun versus Edmund Shabazian, because I need to see Shabazian take on someone who's going to put that pressure on him, who's going to try and put volume on him, who's going to try and take him down over and over again. That has been the problem in Edmund's career that I need to see him overcome before I can get hyped about another trip into the rankings of the middleweight division. So I think Edmund Shabazian versus Jacob Malkoun is a sick matchup. Malcolm Wellmaker. Wicked performance. Nasty first round KO win against Chris Moutinho. Expected though. Wait until you hear the matchup I'm about to give Malcolm Wellmaker, because this is cinema. Okay? Malcolm Wellmaker comes into the UFC, beats my boy Cameron Simon. I'm sad, but it's a great win, great KO. Gets a 50k bonus. Turns around a few weeks later, fights Chris Moutinho, gets a 50k bonus with a first round KO. The momentum is through the roof for Malcolm Wellmaker. I mean, it really is. He is set to be a star. So this next matchup is very important to keep him on that track of exciting matchups, big names that he's going to get respect for beating, but also not pushing him too soon. Malcolm Wellmaker on the UFC Noche card in September versus Malcolm Wellmaker on the UFC Noche card in September versus Adrian Yanez. I think this is a absolute banger matchup to make in the bantamweight division. People who know about the bantamweight division unranked area, which I'm assuming is why you're watching this video, because you would know about those things. Malcolm Wellmaker versus Adrian Yanez is such an amazing striking matchup. Adrian Yanez has had different results recently. You know, he shouldn't have got the win over Davy Grant, but Daniel Marcos fouled him a bunch, and even that was a bit of a weird decision as well. So I think that Malcolm Wellmaker versus Adrian Yanez is a great matchup to prove if Malcolm Wellmaker's the real deal. Because as of right now, you know, he gets a KO win in his debut against a talented guy in Cameron Simon. But in this Chris Moutinho fight, it didn't prove anything beyond that. This was a step back. The Moutinho fight was a step back from the Cameron Simon fight. So he didn't further prove anything other than, okay, this guy's consistently good. Okay? But we just don't know how consistently good he actually is in comparison to the rest of the division. Adrian Yanez is a great boxer. He's going to stand with Malcolm Wellmaker. It's going to be an amazing scrap where they're both trying to take each other out in the first round. There was a time when Adrian Yanez was the guy in the division, moving up the rankings, taking out everyone in stunning fashion. I think they should do Malcolm Wellmaker versus Adrian Yanez on the main card of a UFC Fight Night of Noche in September. I don't know what else they're going to put on that card, but I would suggest Yair Rodriguez versus Diego Lopez in the main event, Brandon Moreno versus some flyweight in the co-main event, and if you put Malcolm Wellmaker versus Adrian Yanez on there as well, and maybe some other matchups that I'm going to discuss in a second, you're looking at a really good fight night card that's not a pay-per-view, and it's not going to need a title on it anyway, so let's not do Volkanovski Rodriguez too. Why would they ever do that? It's fucking bullshit. Cody Garbrandt. Cody Garbrandt lost to Raoni Barcelos. It's a sad loss. It's an embarrassing loss because it shows me that it's not just that this guy isn't who he once was. It shows me that Cody Garbrandt is just straight up fucking arse. Like, he's awful. Not fucking arse as in John Jones and what he does in his spare time. I mean, like, he's just awful. I don't think Garbrandt was ever good. I think there was a time when he was the great matchup to deal with Dominic Cruz, because he was too dumb to let the mind games of Cruz get into his head. He fought well emotionally. I thought at that time, of course, people then said, oh, he got emotional against Pedro Munoz. No, he just tried to fight in the pocket with a guy who was better than him at fighting in the pocket and didn't have a chin like Dominic Cruz. Pedro Munoz has a granite chin. So I've always thought that Cody Garbrandt was fundamentally bad, but this fight with Raoni Barcelos really proved it. There's just no intricacy to his game. It's just scrap, throw a bunch of hands, nothing else to his game. No low kicks, no body kicks, no nothing. You know, no jab, no setting things up, no counters. It was just awful to watch from Cody Garbrandt. And I think that Cody Garbrandt needs a fun matchup, something that's going to be an exciting fight where he does have a shot, where they probably aren't going to be really patient with him. They're probably going to try and push for a finish over him in the first round. That's where Garbrandt is going to thrive, because that suits his ability. I think the matchup for Cody Garbrandt is Charles Jourdain. I've wanted this matchup for a long time. Charles Jourdain submitted Victor Henry in his bantamweight debut. He was supposed to fight Ricky Simone on this card, but got injured. So I think book Cody Garbrandt versus Charles Jourdain on some American Fight Night card this year, before the end of the year. November, December, whenever it's going to be, maybe October as well. It depends how active Garbrandt wants to get back in there. I don't know if he was injured or anything, but I think Cody Garbrandt versus Charles Jourdain, because it's a good matchup to where if Garbrandt's going to lose this fight, Jourdain's sleeping him or finishing him. And that's what you need. You don't want Garbrandt losing a forgetful decision against Raoni Barcelos. If Garbrandt's going to lose and the fans are going to watch it, you want to make sure that the person who beat him is going to get a ton of hype from it and be able to be used as a promotional tool moving forward. So I think that Charles Jourdain versus Cody Garbrandt is great for that reason. Because it gives Garbrandt a chance. Jourdain's going to give him options. He's going to give him openings. He's going to go for him. He's going to try and finish him. This is a guy who had Shane Burgo shooting takedowns. You know what I mean? So Charles Jourdain's all action first and foremost. And I think that's the type of matchup that is approachable for Garbrandt. And it's one of those fights, again, and it comes to this when you see the Wellmaker versus Adrian Yanez matchup. This is what I live for. Main events are good. Top-ranked matchups, we see them once a year these days. Whatever, that's good as... I'm all right with it. I can be at peace with it. These are the sneaky matchups that you will see on an Apex Fight Night card or a Fight Night card in general that will take a card from something uninteresting to you saying, this is kind of stacked. If they put Wellmaker and Adrian Yanez on a Fight Night card on top of a good main and co-main event, that's a stacked card now. Garbrandt versus Charles Jourdain as the main card opener of an Apex, or a co-main event of an Apex Fight Night, or a feature fight of an Apex Fight Night card. All of a sudden, you're not thinking, oh, this is another shitty Apex event. At least you've got that to look forward to. So I think those are the matchups to make for Garbrandt and Wellmaker. And now we're going to go to Michael Chiesa. Now, I've been complaining about Michael Chiesa's matchups. They're protecting him. They're giving him a free career because he dropped the lawsuit about the McGregor bus incident. And it's just so obvious that they've given him Court McGee. And who else did they give him? Tony Ferguson, Court McGee, Max Griffin, back-to-back. It's like, dude, it's time for Michael Chiesa to fight someone who he should lose to. And who he needs to pay back the division, basically. He's living in La La Land in this fairy tale division where everyone's 40 years of age that he's taken on. I think Michael Chiesa versus Jake Matthews would be a great matchup. Now, Jake Matthews versus Chidi Njokuani is taking place in July. So this could well be a Michael Chiesa versus Chidi Njokuani matchup. I was going to do Michael Chiesa, Randy Brown, but I want to see Randy Brown back in there pretty soon. So again, I'm thinking of schedules. I think we're going to see Randy Brown back in there probably October or September against a Renat Fakretinov or something along those lines is what I would imagine for Randy Brown or a Neil Magny. I don't know if he's got a matchup right now. He probably does. He always does. But Michael Chiesa versus Jake Matthews, Chidi Njokuani winner. Chidi could win. I just had Jake Matthews' picture for it. That's what I want to see. Because I think the winner of Matthews versus Njokuani deserves their opponent that's going to get them in a position to where they can talk about a ranked opponent next. And that's what Michael Chiesa represents right now. So I think that's what they should do in this division. A young, talented fighter versus Michael Chiesa. Not some 40-year-old man who's done that Chiesa's just going to fucking really shitly and boringly defeat. Like, come on. Michael Chiesa, Jake Matthews, or Chidi Njokuani is the move. Raoni Barcelos. The guy's been making a fucking fortune, I imagine. Because he's been in the UFC for a long time. I mean, I remember when this guy fought Khalid Taha. And he destroyed him in a round. And people were saying, oh, it's the bantamweight Jose Aldo. This was before, I think, Aldo was even in the bantamweight division. So you could actually say this is the bantamweight Jose Aldo. Without it actually meaning Jose Aldo. But Raoni Barcelos has had some great performances in his career. He's come up short a few times. You know, he had a fight with Timo Valiev where he dropped him twice in a round really badly. And it should have been a 10-8, but they didn't give it to him. And he ended up losing a decision that should have maybe been a draw. And that sort of brought his career to a bit of a halt. But Barcelos is a problem, man. He's just defeated Peyton Tabit and Cody Garbrandt back-to-back. I bet you anything he's making over 100 grand for a win at this point. I bet you anything he is. He's probably making 60 for 60, 65, 65, 70 for 70 for some of these fights. So what they're doing is they're paying Raoni Barcelos, in their mind, to lose to Peyton Tabit to lose to Cody Garbrandt, hopefully, even though it was a close fight that you could have gone either way with a prediction for. I thought Barcelos would win. He ended up winning. But I know the UFC were rooting for Garbrandt to win there. I bet you anything the UFC were rooting for Garbrandt to win so they could try and justify him being ranked at number 14, 15 and making some kind of O'Malley matchup. I bet you anything. Somewhere down the line, we would have seen that if Garbrandt could ever put together 2 more wins in the bantamweight division. But he couldn't. And now Barcelos is just chewing up their names and spitting them out for nothing. No one cares about Barcelos, and it's sad because he's old, so no one wants to get invested in his career because he might drop from a fucking stroke in about a year's time, and then it's like, oh, I just got invested in this guy's journey at bantamweight, and now, you know, he fucking choked to death on a gumdrop in his old people's home, you know what I mean? So I just feel like people aren't invested in Barcelos. There's no personality there. There's no hype. He's also not finishing Tabet and Garbrandt. If he had just slept Tabet and Garbrandt back-to-back, there'd be some investment there. There'd be some promo. There'd be some hype for Barcelos. But I think you just got to keep chucking names at him. I think you do Raul Rosas Jr. versus Raoni Barcelos. On the Noche card in September, on the Fight Night card in September for Noche, I'm already looking at that card as a main event of Yair versus Diego Lopez. Co-main event of Moreno versus someone, Wellmaker versus Yanez on the card, Manuel Torres versus someone at lightweight that's fun on the card, maybe a Joel Alvarez, who knows, but also like a, you know, Raoni Barcelos versus Raul Rosas Jr., because this is good. Raul Rosas Jr. is a known name now in the sport. Chihuihuas, he's the Chihuihuas guy. Everybody knows Chihuihuas. Even the casual fans know about Chihuihuas. Is that the Chihuihuas guy? That's Raul Rosas Jr., so they know about him. They need to know who his opponent is. And I think it's good if his next opponent is Raoni Barcelos, because if they, like, the casual fans are going to know Raoni Barcelos, he's the guy who fraud-checked Peyton Tabet. That's what their mindset will be. Oh, that's the guy that fraud-checked Peyton Tabet and proved that he wasn't good enough. Oh, he's just coming off a win over Cody Garbrandt. He was a former champ. He beat Dominic Cruz. This is how the casual mind works. If Raul Rosas Jr. goes out there and beats Raoni Barcelos, one, it's an approachable matchup. Very risky, probably going to be 50-50 in odds, let's be honest. But if he beats Raoni Barcelos, in the casual fan's mind, he's real as a prospect compared to a guy like Peyton Tabet who lost to Raoni Barcelos. So I think it's good to have that sort of, you know, comparison amongst prospects by having them against the same opponents. And there's that familiarity to Raoni Barcelos now amongst the casual fans, where they may not be able to name him, but they might see the matchup with him and Raul Rosas Jr. and think, oh, I know that guy. He fraud-checked Peyton Tabet. That's a sick matchup. So I think Barcelos versus Raul Rosas Jr. is a good test. And it's just a great test for Raul Rosas Jr. as well. If he wins this one, especially if he wins by submission on the ground, because Raoni's no joke on the ground. If he goes out there and out-grapples Raoni Barcelos to a win, I think it's very impressive. I think it's impressive. And it separates him from a Garbrandt, from a, you know, Peyton Tabet, and makes him a legit prospect in the bantamweight division that can start looking for a matchup that's either going to get him ranked number 15 by default, or a matchup that's in the 10 to 15 range of the bantamweight division. So I think Raoni Barcelos is the perfect just outside the rankings matchup for Raul Rosas Jr. Paul Craig. Run it back, man. Just keep running this shit back. I know it's funny. I think Rodolfo Bellato should be cut from the UFC. I've been very open about that. He blatantly lied. He blatantly acted. He knew he was fine. He looked over at the ref and then acted like he was asleep. I think that he deserves to be punished and removed from the UFC. But Dana doesn't care about the company anymore, so he won't do that. He probably doesn't even know that this happened. I bet you anything, if someone asked him about the Rodolfo Bellato thing, he would say, what? When was that? Hey, Adrian, tell me when that was. The Atlanta card? On the prelims? I don't know, guys. That's what we're going to get out of Dana White. So I think just run this fight back. Paul Craig, Rodolfo Bellato. It's hard to find a matchup for Paul Craig or Rodolfo Bellato that makes sense, that would be in any way exciting at this point in their careers, where they're at in the rankings. Just run it back, man. It got cancelled before because Rodolfo Bellato had herpes. It's now been ruined again to a no contest because Rodolfo Bellato acted and faked being KO'd from an up kick. What's going to happen the third time? Rodolfo Bellato might just fucking tear down the fucking cage and leap over it and run. Like, I need to see what Rodolfo Bellato is going to do to top ruining the last 2 fights that these two were supposed to have. It might become a fun little meme of an Apex event that they could put on. And that sells, you know? When I see an Apex event and I see the great trilogy of Paul Craig versus Rodolfo Bellato that never was on the card, I'm thinking, oh, hang on a minute here. I'm invested in this card now. So I think run it back. Run it back until this fight happens. Imagine Rodolfo Bellato ruins it again. I mean, that would be the payoff at the end, right? See you later. Goodbye. Toodle pip. Those are the matchups I want to make.